She wasn't supposed to be alive. Not here, not now, not in this broken cage half buried in the snow of a forgotten farming world on the edge of the Orion Spur. Her skin, once shimmering silver, was now stained with grime and frostbite. Her eyes, bright with fire once, stared dull into the grey morning. And that was when he found her. His name was Cole Rayner, a salvager turned scout for the Human Coalition. Just another ex-military guy too restless to stay home but too burned out to keep fighting. He was checking abandoned colonies for surviving tech, mostly junk and ghost signals, but this place was flagged for recon. An old farming commune, wiped clean during the Torix invasions a decade ago. He stepped off his transport into dead silence. Snow crunched underfoot. The buildings were husks, swallowed by frost. Then he heard a sound, low, guttural. Animal. He turned, hand on his sidearm, and froze. There she was. In a cage. Not locked, just forgotten. Like a prisoner no one remembered to free. She was crouched low, arms wrapped around her knees, eyes locked on him like he was another hallucination. Her breath was shallow. Her lips were cracked. Cole took a step forward, hands raised. Hey. I'm not here to hurt you. Nothing. She didn't flinch. Didn't even blink. The closer he got, the more he saw metal cuffs welded into her forearms. Scars. Bruises. Her body was rail-thin, but something about her, she wasn't human. Not quite. The shape of her eyes, the taper of her fingers, something otherworldly. Not Torix. Not any of the catalogued species. She was something else. Can you understand me? He asked. She blinked slowly, then nodded. Barely. Cole knelt outside the bars. What's your name? A long silence. Then she rasped, they called me 47. He exhaled through his teeth. That's not a name. That's a number. It was all they gave. Cole studied the cage. Rusted. Welded shut long ago. But breakable. He stood. I'm getting you out. A whisper, don't. He paused. Why not? Her voice cracked. They'll come back. They always come back. Cole shook his head. They won't. The war's over. 10 years. Something flickered in her expression. A shift. Hope. No. Something older. Something deeper. Distrust carved into bone. Cole blew the hinges with his plasma torch. The door groaned open. He extended a hand. She didn't take it. Instead, she staggered out on her own, barefoot in the snow. She moved like a shadow, each step trembling but deliberate. As if she'd trained herself never to fall, no matter how weak. Cole didn't say anything. He just removed his coat and draped it over her shoulders. The med bay aboard Cole's transport hummed low as she lay curled in the diagnostic bed, twitching at every hiss of air or flicker of light. Her name, if she had one, was still a mystery. Her body had dozens of embedded tracking nodes, most long dead. Some burned into her skin. Who did this to you? Cole asked later, after she'd eaten. He'd kept his distance, gave her space. She didn't answer right away. Humans, she said finally. He blinked. No. That's not, we don't do that. She looked at him like he was a child. Your corporations do. Your scientists. Hidden worlds. Test colonies, private buyers. He went cold. It was possible. The coalition outlawed genetic slavery and experimental sentient containment decades ago, but the fringe systems? The rogue sectors? You were part of a program? Not a part. I was the experiment. She sat up slowly, clutching the coat tighter. I was found drifting, light years from any known route. They took me in. Studied me. Tried to recreate my kind. But they never found another. So they made me theirs. Cole's jaw clenched. You've been alone this whole time. I was not meant to be seen, she whispered. I was meant to be erased. They stayed low orbit for a few days. Cole sent encrypted reports to his network, omitting her existence. He didn't trust the officials. Not yet. She refused to sleep with the door closed. Wouldn't let food be brought unless she saw it prepared. Flinched at mirrors. But she started talking. She told him about the center, a research facility buried under a moon's crust. About the injections. The combat trials. The loneliness. How she was made to mimic human behavior, then punished when she did it too well. They hated that I was learning, she said. Why? Because they feared I would stop obeying. One night, Cole asked the question that had been gnawing at him. Why didn't you try to escape? All that time? She looked at him, dead in the eyes. Because they convinced me I was nothing. That if I left, no one would care. He felt that like a punch to the gut. They lied. I know, she said softly. Now. A week passed. She moved easier. Spoke more. Ate real food. Cole showed her the stars from the viewing deck, naming constellations like old friends. He noticed the way she stared at them, not with wonder, but recognition. You've seen them before, haven't you? Yes, she murmured. From the other side. Other side of what? She didn't answer. The next day, the alarms blared. Cole raced to the cockpit. A beacon. Military grade. Tracked to his exact location. You tell anyone, he barked into the comm. No, came his contact's voice. But someone's listening. You stirred something up. Something old. He glanced at her across the deck. She was standing now. Rigid. Silent. They're coming for her, aren't they? Or what she knows, the voice said. Whatever she is, she wasn't supposed to survive. Cole killed the comm. She was already by his side. I won't run again, she said. But I won't go back. Cole nodded. Then we make our stand. That night, she told him her real name. Or something close to it. A sound that didn't quite fit in human mouths. He smiled. You got a nickname? Something easier? She thought for a moment. Call me Eli. Eli, he said, testing it. Okay. Eli. The stars outside burned brighter. And somewhere, in the cold dark, something ancient had just awakened. Cole had seen a lot of wild things in the outer rim, pirate ambushes, black hole smugglers, sentient fungus that could sing. But he'd never had a fugitive alien experiment in his medbay telling him she'd rather die than be taken alive. It had been 2 days since the beacon. No ships on scanners yet, but that meant nothing. Whoever was coming wasn't using coalition channels. That made them dangerous. That made them the kind of people who never filed reports and never left survivors. Cole had one choice left, run fast and deep. Eli stood at the edge of the cockpit, arms crossed, her silver-grey skin flushed with warmth for the first time. She watched the stars like a chess master reads the board. Where would they take me if they caught us? She asked. Cole adjusted the nav dial. Back to wherever they buried you. Or worse, some black site no one's heard of. You wouldn't be a person there. You'd be a classified asset. She tilted her head. They always spoke that way. Like I was inventory. Like I didn't matter. You matter now, Cole said without thinking. She didn't react, but something in her jaw tightened. He routed them through the Pashorn Veil, an ancient corridor riddled with sensor ghosts and electromagnetic fog. No one sane flew through it. Which was exactly why Cole did. He figured they had about 3 hours before whoever triggered the beacon figured out where he'd gone. In the meantime, he taught Eli to fire a blaster. They stood in the weapons bay, targeting dummies spinning on rotating arms. Don't think about it, Cole said. React. Your body already knows. You survived in a cage for years, you've got instincts. Trust M. She narrowed her eyes and fired. Direct hit. She frowned. Why teach me this? You plan on handing me a gun and telling me to shoot my way out? Cole shook his head. No. I'm teaching you so you have a choice. Nobody ever gave you one, right? That hit her harder than the shot. They docked at EOS station under false registry codes. Cole had a contact there, a fixer named Marn, who owed him too many favors. The station was loud, rusted, and swarming with smugglers, miners, and bounty hunters. Eli stayed close, hood drawn. But her posture had changed. She walked taller now. Marn's eyes widened when he saw her. You brought that thing here? Cole shoved him against the bulkhead. She's not a thing. She's someone. And someone's coming for her. Marn rubbed his throat. I heard the chatter. Ghost ops. Burned records. If she's the one they say she is, you're already dead. She's staying with me. Just need a clean ship and a deep jump route. Marn grunted. There's a route through the Calyx fold. No transponders. But you'll need a refit to handle the pressure shifts. Do it. Marn's gaze flicked to Eli. She worth it? Cole didn't answer. He didn't need to. That night, Eli sat on the station's outer platform, staring into the void. Cole joined her with 2 steaming mugs of synth tea. I used to think the stars were gods, she said softly. He sipped. And now? Now I think they're just witnesses. Cold, silent witnesses to all our mistakes. He leaned forward. What are they trying to erase, Eli? She didn't speak for a long time. When I was born, created, maybe I wasn't alone. There were others. But they died. One by one. Some during tests. Some during escape attempts. They said I was the only viable unit. But that wasn't true. I was just the only one who never fought back. Cole felt something knot in his chest. Now I remember all their names. Every single one. And I think, maybe I survived to make sure they weren't forgotten. A quiet settled between them. Then a siren wailed. Marn's voice came through the comm, inbound vessel. No tags. Fast. Too fast. Eli stood. They found us. Cole was already moving. The enemy ship dropped out of fold space like a black knife through silk. No lights. No insignia. Just smooth alloy and twin disruptor cannons aimed directly at EOS station's docks. Cole and Eli made it to the ship just as the first blast hit. Airlocks screamed. People ran. Eli, get us airborne. She didn't hesitate. Her fingers flew over the controls, faster than anyone Cole had ever seen. She knew these systems like she'd been born inside them. Where'd you learn to fly like this? He asked, strapping in. Simulations. Hundreds. Thousands. I used to dream about escape so much. I memorized every route. The ship peeled away from the station, dodging fire. Cole launched countermeasures. The enemy followed. Eli, we need something big. She smirked. I know a place. Cole's brow raised. You know a place. A dead moon. Old tech. Buried AI weapons grid. They trained me there. If it still works. He grinned. That's the kind of crazy plan I like. The moon was as she remembered, desolate, cratered, haunted by echoes. They landed near a ridge where part of the old research site still protruded from the dust. She led Cole through the tunnels. Cold. Dusty. But still powered. She activated the command console with a palm scan. It recognized her. Access granted, the AI chimed. Cole blinked. You were really their favorite. I was their prototype. They built everything here around me. She activated the defense grid. Coordinates locked, the AI said. Outside, the enemy ship descended. You sure this won't fry us too? Cole asked. Eli glanced at him. You trust me? He nodded. Then stay close. The sky lit up. Old turrets burst from the ground. Lasers stitched the air. Plasma mines erupted around the perimeter. The Black Ops ship veered hard, trying to dodge. But the grid was too fast. Too old. Too angry. One clean hit to the engine core. The enemy ship exploded. Cole exhaled. Remind me not to piss you off. Eli stood quietly, watching the flames die. This place, it was my grave. And now it's my proof. Proof of what? That I was real. That I existed. That they couldn't erase me. Cole smiled. Then let's make damn sure the whole galaxy knows it. Later that night, back aboard the ship, Eli sat across from him, shoulders relaxed for the first time. Thank you, she said. For what? For showing me I wasn't worthless. He looked at her, really looked at her. You were never worthless, Eli. They just wanted you to believe it. She closed her eyes. For the first time in her life, she let herself believe it too. The galaxy didn't care about people like Eli. That's what she had been told over and over. But things were changing. Now, Cole and Eli weren't just running. They were moving with purpose. Word had spread, quietly at first. In whispers, encrypted forums, backwater cantinas. Stories of a woman who shouldn't exist. A weapon that defied her makers. Some said she was a myth. Others wanted her dead. And a few, a rare few, wanted her free. Cole tapped the nav screen. There's a station ahead. Not coalition. Independent. But there's someone there who can help us blow this whole thing wide open. Eli leaned over the console, eyes scanning the data. Another friend? Sort of. She's a journalist. Real one. Used to cover war crimes before the syndicates made her disappear. Name's Viessa. Eli tensed. And you trust her? Cole looked at her. I don't trust people. I trust motives. Viessa hates cover-ups more than she hates getting shot. Eli sat back. That's a very specific kind of person. He chuckled. Yeah. She's also got a gun bigger than mine. The station hung in space like a rusted knife. Old orbital design, half-lit, patched together with scrap. As they docked, Eli kept her hood drawn. Inside, it was chaos. Loud. Hot. Smelled like engine oil and bad decisions. But Viessa found them first. She was tall, wiry, with cybernetic eyes and a smirk that could punch through steel. You brought the ghost girl, she said, crossing her arms. Eli stepped forward. I'm not a ghost. Viessa tilted her head. Good. I don't write about ghosts. I write about bastards. And it sounds like the people who built you were the worst kind. Cole got straight to the point. We want to expose them. Names. Places. Everything. Viessa's eyes flashed. You've got proof. Eli held up a data crystal. Direct access from the archive vault. Coordinates. Logs. Experiment files. All of it. Viessa whistled low. Well damn. I hope you're ready to become public enemy number 1. Eli's voice was steady. I've already been number 0. The upload started. Viessa's secure terminal crackled with encrypted data flowing into darknet vaults and coalition leak networks. Cole paced. Eli sat perfectly still. You sure about this? Viessa asked her. Eli nodded. The world needs to know what they did. Viessa grinned. Good. Because once this hits, there's no going back. The message spread fast. Coalition whistleblowers confirmed details. Private Corps scrambled to hide. Black sites were quietly dismantled. But it wasn't enough. Because someone else had been watching. 2 days later, a new signal appeared. Encrypted. Alien. Eli froze when she heard it. It's them. Cole narrowed his eyes. The ones who made you. She shook her head. No. Not them. The ones who lost me. Cole didn't understand. What does that mean? She looked up, something sparking behind her eyes. I wasn't created. Not really. I was taken. From somewhere else. Viessa leaned forward. You mean, you were abducted? Eli nodded. I always had memories that didn't match. Languages I didn't learn. Places I never saw. I thought they were dreams. But they weren't. The signal came again. Stronger this time. Can you trace it? Cole asked. I don't have to, Eli said. I know where they are. They followed the signal to the edge of mapped space. Past any known chart. Into a dead zone called Virel's Hollow, a pocket of space avoided even by smugglers. Every legend said it was cursed. Eli wasn't afraid. They found the ship drifting above a pale blue planet. It was unlike anything they'd seen, smooth, organic-looking, glowing faintly like it was alive. Cole kept one hand on the throttle. What are we walking into? Eli stared at the ship. Home. Maybe. The ship allowed them to dock without resistance. The interior felt like a dream. Warm. Soft light. Air that smelled like rain. Figures emerged from the mist. Tall. Slender. Eyes like galaxies. One stepped forward and spoke, not in words, but in thought. Daughter. Eli staggered. I remember you, she whispered. The alien's thoughts wrapped around her like music. Memories flowed. Her true name. Her family. Her people. Lost to her for so long, now flooding back. They took me from you, Eli said aloud. They made me forget. Cole stepped back, watching in awe. Viessa whispered, we just uncovered one crime. This is a whole new galaxy. Eli turned to them. They want to take me home. Cole's heart sank. He tried to hide it. You should go. It's where you belong. She looked at him. Really looked. Maybe. But I'm not done here. The aliens offered her answers about who she was, what she could become. But Eli chose to return with Cole. There was still a fight to finish. Before leaving, the aliens gifted her something small, crystalline, and pulsing with light. What is it? Cole asked. She smiled. A memory. One that can't be erased. They left the hollow, changed. And the galaxy wasn't ready for what came next. The galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. When Eli returned from the edge of known space, when she stepped off Cole's ship with fire in her eyes and clarity in her soul, she wasn't a fugitive anymore. She was a witness. A survivor. And more than anything, she was undeniable. News of her existence had gone viral. Not just because of what she was, but because of what she represented. A person ripped from her home. Modified, tortured, stripped of identity and still standing. Still fighting. Still choosing to hope. Cole and Eli knew they had one final move to make. They landed at the Coalition Assembly on Earth under full escort. The media storm was a hurricane. Protesters clashed with security. Supporters held signs that read Eli is all of us and no more hidden labs. Viessa had prepped them for this moment. Her stories had become the front line of a new civil movement. The whistleblower data Eli carried had exposed more than a dozen illegal research facilities, half funded by supposedly benevolent corporations. But exposure wasn't enough. Change had to follow. Inside the Grand Hall, packed with delegates and dignitaries, Eli stood alone at the center. The chairwoman of the assembly, a rigid woman with ice-gray eyes, cleared her throat. State your designation for the record. Eli didn't blink. My name is Eli. That is all you need to know. Do you have evidence to support your claims? I am the evidence. Gasps rippled through the room. She stepped forward. For years, I was treated like an object. A tool. A thing. They tried to rewrite me. Erase me. But I remember. I remember the screams of those who didn't survive. I carry them with me. You can bury data. You can deny files. But you can't erase what I am. She held up the crystalline artifact given to her by her people. It shimmered with light, casting images into the air, memories of her world, her childhood, her abduction. It was irrefutable proof of everything she'd said. Of who she'd been before she was stolen. I am not here to beg. I am not here to ask for justice. I am justice. The room went silent. In the days that followed, a reckoning swept across the stars. Coalition laws were rewritten. Accountability units were formed. Survivors of other secret experiments stepped forward, emboldened by Eli's story. Some still bore the marks of their captivity. Others had spent years hiding in plain sight. A memorial was constructed, names of the lost engraved in alloy. Eli visited often, whispering their names aloud. She refused to let them vanish again. Cole stayed by her side through it all. He turned down medals. Ignored interview requests. He didn't need recognition. He had found something more valuable than fame. He had found someone worth believing in. On the anniversary of her testimony, Eli stood before a crowd of thousands. The stars above twinkled in silence, bearing witness. I once believed I was worthless. That no one would come for me. That I was a mistake to be corrected. But I was wrong. I wasn't broken. I was unfinished. She turned to the children standing behind her, orphans rescued from trafficking routes, freed from illegal research. We are not what they made us. We are what we choose to become. Thunderous applause rose. But Eli simply smiled. Cole approached her quietly. You ready? She nodded. Yeah. Let's go home. They didn't return to Earth. They didn't stay in the spotlight. Instead, they journeyed outward, to the very edge of what was known. Eli didn't want revenge. She didn't want monuments. She wanted to find others like her. Forgotten voices. Hidden lives. Lost stories waiting to be told. Because she had learned the most important truth of all. You are not what they call you. You are not your scars. You are not the silence they try to cage you in. You are worth more than their fear. And when someone finally sees you not for what you were made to be, but for who you truly are, everything changes. Eli watched the stars from the deck of Cole's ship, her reflection dancing in the glass. She was still healing. But now, she was free. And that made all the difference.